Hello and welcome to the top 10 tips and tricks for intermediate and experienced players in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on Xbox One. Tip number 1. Drop positioning. I find that dropping at hotspots away from the flight path allows for a decent amount of early game combat, and, provided that you survive, sets you up well for the rest of the match. Tip number 2. Be sure to stay stationary when you are firing. Even a small amount of strafe or creep is going to significantly impact your bullet spread. Learn to combine this with crouch, lean, or breath hold, and you'll be sure to hit targets consistently. Tip number 3. The peeking method. At mid to long range combat, peeking from cover is a must. Of course, this involves making sure you have cover in the first place. What I find the most effective peeking strategy is throwing a dummy peek to one side, then peeking to fire from the opposite side. This will cause your opponent to settle their crosshairs on where they think you'll next peek, only to find themselves 2 steps behind and on their way back to the games lobby. Tip number 4. Crosshair Judgement. This tip leads on from the peeking meta tip and works best with low aim down sight sensitivity. Apply your best X-ray vision to settle your crosshairs on where you think your opponents are prior to peeking. This way you can get your rounds off quicker, and the low aim down sight sensitivity will ensure your bullets don't stray too far from the target. I've also linked a screenshot in the description below of my in-game controls that I feel work very nicely with this. But hey, find what works for you. Tip number 5. Note your surroundings. First off, I have to say this. If you're playing with the audio from your monitor or TV, you're already severely disadvantaged. The ability to pinpoint gunfire, vehicle movements, and slippery snakes slithering in the grass is absolutely paramount to being good at PUBG. But anyway, there are obvious signs of life, such as open doors, used vehicles, and footsteps in houses. The more skilled PUBG player will note and apply this knowledge to their advantage through doing things such as closing all external doors, parking vehicles at spawn points to avoid raising suspicion, running at the external border of houses to bait movement and confirm enemy presence, and most importantly,
learning to hunt.
To hunt is to pursue and kill a wild animal for sport or food. So this relates directly to PUBG, right? Hunting is a skill that we most commonly use in early game PUBG, and involves observing and predicting an opponent's next most probable movement, taking into account open doors in one or subsequent towns or loot spots, map positioning compared with circle placement, are there any available vehicles, and be sure to take note of any gunfire that matches with the in-game kill feed. This will give you some idea of how you match up against your opponent. Tip number 7. Cook your frags. And don't be afraid to cook them well and good like to make sure your opponent has no time to flee. On rare occasions, leaving frags uncooked is useful, for example as a distraction while you're trying to run for cover, or for especially long distance or downhill yeets. Tip number 8. Endgame circle use. Flush out the rats. Following the 4th circle closure, players simply cannot survive outside the blue for more than a few seconds. pushing into the circle late with the blue hugging your booty, and rolling left or right, depending on where the cover is a great way to locate players who have been camping in bushes or proning in gillies, as they have no option but to push into the circle. Keep in mind that if you do choose to make contact in this situation, you generally want to be inside the circle yourself to avoid taking unnecessary damage. Tip number 9, endgame strategy. If your primary goal is that juicy chicken dinner and you aren't out to kill the entire map, avoid contact at all costs. The moment you fire your weapon during endgame, every remaining player will know precisely where you are. That being said, if you do choose to fire, be sure to move from your position as soon as possible so that your location cannot be pinned down by your opponents. And finally, tip number 10. Premeditate your movements, especially during endgame. Aim to stay as close to the wedge as possible. This isn't always an option, but will simply give you more time to push late into the circle and apply tips number 8 and 9 most effectively. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, don't forget to drop a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.